Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. I am your host this week, I think, Jonathon Kinchen. PTF, who knows? He's gallivanting around Europe. He's probably got a hat on and he's probably saying mate to people and going to pubs and saying all that kind of cheeky British racing talk, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to make something up. But anyways, I'm here. And we got a great show. If I can remember correctly, we're going to talk a little Woodbine with Drew Coatney. We're going to talk a little Monmouth with Brian Skirka. We're going to talk a little NYRA with me. And we're going to talk a little Santa Anita with Duke Matisse. So, look, there's no reason for me to sit here and talk in circles. Make sure you're subscribing, you're following, you're retweeting, you're tweeting, you're commenting, you're doing all those things. We appreciate your support here at In the Money Media, and we appreciate you always tuning in and supporting what we do. Hope you enjoy the product. So look, I don't know where producer Craig is going to go next because there's a bunch of little segments, but whoever's coming up next, I'm sure they'll be good. See you in a little bit. Now, I guess I'm just by myself here. We're going to talk a little bit about this pick 5 from NYRA on Saturday. I was going to do the pick 6, but there's a maiden special weight with a first-time starter for Todd Pletcher in the race for Donegal Racing, and I realized I'm not going to really be able to provide much information. This is a workout report type of race. I got to know how this horse is working. If you're going to play the pick 6, I think you could probably look a little bit to the tote board here. If the 6 Donegal Forever is live in race 5, then obviously it feels like a horse maybe you could lean on. The rest of them don't really seem to have a lot outside of the 5 Shreveport for Bill Mott. I think maybe there's some interesting stuff there. So officially, we're going to go pick 5 here. Starting in race 6, there's a couple of horses that I want to make sure I have as A horses. The 2 Click-A-Tat. A horse who has some back numbers, really, and he's switching trainers now to Gustavo Rodriguez. And I think that when you're switching trainers and you've had back numbers, there's always that little chance that this is going to be the wake up. This is going to be the thing that kind of brings you back to where you were. I think that's interesting with the 2 Click-A-Tat drawn towards the inside. Should be able to save some ground in this spot all the way around there and on the inside. I'm hoping that works. Also, the 5B here. I almost singled here, the 5B here. This horse has a big number, ran well last time, was kind of chasing a fast pace, was closing into it, but was close enough, I think, to kind of get some of the negative effects of that fast pace. The 4 Land Biscuit is a horse I'll use as a B horse. Just has some back numbers as well. A pretty tricky start to the race, but there was nothing in here that I absolutely fell in love with. A few MTOs. We'll see what happens with the weather. Race 7. This is ice cold. Not ice cold. This is a single with a backup. I'm going to single the outside horse, Mariachi, for connections, first-time starters. Don't run particularly well for Kimmel. And this horse did run well, was bet that day, ran well, came back, got the win, and then shows up now as a 3-year-old. We talk about it often, how horses that show numbers as 2-year-olds and have the opportunity to turn into a 3-year-old, they can really make some big jumps forward. They can really make some improvements. And I think that Mariachi is one of those horses who now gets on Lasix, drawn outside, tactical speed. I really don't need anyone else in here. I'll use someone else, but I do think that the 1 Oceans Reserve, it makes a little bit of sense defensively. He ran a fast number last time, does have some fast numbers on the past performances, but man, you got to think that the 7 Mariachi really is going to take another step forward. And I love the outside draw. I love the Lasix. I love the 2-3. There's a lot of things to like. Race 8, a mile on the turf. I'm going to use the 2 Owls Rocket. Who I felt made some sense, and the 7 Exact Estimate. It is a pretty straightforward sequence, if I'm being honest. I thought the 2 Owls Rocket ran well last time, was finishing well. The pace wasn't terribly fast in front of him last time, but he ran well, and he picked up some pieces. There's been 3 horses to run back out of that race, a win, a second, and a third out of that. I think it's a productive race, and this horse can also take another step forward, second off of a layoff, second time as a 4-year-old. And then the 7 Exact Estimate for Chad Brown. You get IRAD, a horse that started the career on the dirt and had some nice dirt races, but then ended up being better on the turf, had some better turf races, a handful, actually a handful exactly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 MTOs, which I think could be interesting. Race 9, look, you needed her, I needed her, and she just never got out. I think that there was conversation. I think if they would have won that race at Churchill, I think there's a chance you would have seen Goodnight Olive in the Met Mile. But because of that situation, because she didn't win, there was an opportunity to kind of take a step back, take the path of least resistance. That's what they're doing. They're going to run her in the bed of roses to get her to those grade ones in the summer. I think she's a foregone conclusion in here. I think IRAD will ride her a little bit more aggressively than he does when he's facing better, because he has to worry about saving something. I think he can kind of just do whatever he wants with her in this spot and still find his way to the winner's circle. It's crazy to me that she's 6-5. I guess the presence of Wicked Halo, who was kind of responsible for keeping her in that time. And then also Caramel Swirl, who also takes money all the time too. But if the real Goodnight Olive shows up, the others are running for second. And I hope they do take some money. I hope some of these other horses in here, like Dr. B and Caramel Swirl and Wicked Halo, take some money, because I think it's an ice cold single. At least it will be for me with the one Goodnight Olive. Race 10, 6 furlongs on the turf, claiming race. This is how we like to end it in New York. And I got to be honest with you, I thought this race was wide open. I don't ever hit the all button unless I really have to. I think the one runner ready is one that you definitely want to have. Rosemary Potatoes, the 3 has back numbers that I think you want to try to take into consideration. The 4, Mostly Harmless, has been running on the dirt as of late, but does have back turf numbers. Look, I'm not going to waste your time by going through all these horses. I'm being very honest with you. This is a very, very tough race, and I think you should use as many of these horses as you possibly can. This is a chaos race where they could run the race 10 times. I think you could have 10 different winners. I'm going to spread like crazy in here, and I think I've earned the right to do that with some singles with Goodnight Olive, and also with some races where I'm going a little skinny, only using a couple of horses. So I think that those are the ones that I'll use for this pick 5 sequence. Like I told you before, there is the pick 6. I love $1 pick 6. I just can't figure it out with that first race until I gather a little bit more information from either the tote board or from the workout reports. Duke, what's going on?
JK, back from Italy.
Man, I'm very sad that you didn't make the trip. There was a lot of wine. I think you would have enjoyed it quite a bit. The food was outstanding. The views. We had a great group. You would have had a lot of fun.
I wish I went. It just was a tough go for all the things going on, but I should spend a lot of time in Saratoga this year, so we'll get together.
Yeah, we'll make up for it then. That's for sure. I'm usually, we get teased with your appearances in Saratoga. Usually come for, the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then you're gone the rest of the time. But it sounds like we might get a full Duke experience.
Yeah, might have to get a little gig going or something. Might have to do a regular, podcast or something. Maybe with you guys.
I'm sure Pete will put you to work. There's no doubt about that. I mean, we'll go to dinner, but Pete will do you the podcast. We'll do dinner.
I'd rather do the dinner for sure, but
yeah, we got a bunch of reservations lined up at Salivo, so we'll be able to pull that off. But the order of business today is to talk a little bit about this late pick 5 on Saturday. Obviously there is going to be a mandatory payout on Sunday, so you can hopefully pick up some money in the late pick 5 on Saturday to run back on Sunday for that mandatory. But we'll get started. I believe it's in race 8. It's 6.5. I don't think it's down the hill, right, Duke? It's just 6.5.
The first one's not down the hill. The last one is, okay. I believe.
Duke, for people who are watching, you're looking every day. You're doing the trips as well, for your group in Santa Anita. So you're watching every race at every point of call. You're watching the head-ons. You're watching all these things. Tell me what you know about that flat 6.5. That not down the hill. Speed, outside, inside, closers. What do you know about the 6.5 turf race at Santa Anita?
It plays almost completely opposite as of the down the hill. Like the down the hill plays mostly outside posts are better. So the course 6.5 on the regular, coming out of the chute, which I would call the regular part of the track, it favors inside. It's like horses that gravitate right, they get right over to the inside, and it just seems like they just keep going. So I look for pocket trips. I look for horses with tactical speed that can get inside posts, that can get over to the left instead of outside posts that can get hung out, because it just seems like who rides that course the best is Hector Barrios. He puts his horse almost every single time like right on the inside, and he waits for room, and he just splits, and just seems like he's got it down. And it's what I call an old school inside, biased course.
In race 8, there is a first-time U.S. horse on the grass, and it's like clockwork in this country. We can't control ourselves. These first-time grass horses that come from Europe, we have to bet them. Everyone bets them. They get bet down, especially for connections like Phil D'Amato. Same thing we see with Chad and Christoph. Who was kind of drawing your attention to this one?
That horse is interesting because I watched the workouts on that horse, the last 3 workouts. And it's weird that Woodbine, we're talking about number 2, worked terrible. Worked good when we worked with Hong Kong Harry on May 22nd. Then worked terrible when it worked with Kitty Katana. It couldn't even keep up. But then worked good again when it worked with Master of Foxhound. So I don't know what to do with that one, because it seems like he's moody. So it depends which one shows up. If the good one shows up, he could win. But I like Cherubic Factor, number 6. Ever since, if you look back, ever since Mario Gutierrez has gotten off this horse, which is a great angle of mine, this horse has just run dynamite 4 races in a row. And even last time got in trouble, had to wait, steadied on the turn, had to wait. And once found room had run, and gets a really good speed figure, just figures to be the horse to beat in here. Picks up JJ Hernandez, who wins probably about 30-40% of his mounts nowadays, since all the good guys are gone. So I really like Cherubic Factor in there. The one thing about this race is there's not a lot of pace, at least on paper there's not. So I think you got to use the 1 Jack 6-pack. I think the 1 post will help him to switch to Vasquez, who this Ramon Vasquez is really caught on a little bit here in California too. He rides that turf course well, just like Hector Barrios does. And I think that would be my second choice. He's got tactical speed from the rail, and it's D'Amato. And we don't have to say much more about him. Phil D'Amato wins about half these turf races, these turf sprints. So I like 6 and 1, 6 on top, 1 in second best.
Yeah, and then also, Duke, about the 1 Jack 6-pack. I know you and Paul, your brother Paul Matisse, have talked about this quite a bit. Is the Lasix on and off thing, kind of following that a little bit. You can kind of also find some things. Jack 6-pack had he had 3 great performances. He ran second, then he won, and then he lost the Lasix.
Yeah, he was off the Lasix last time against.
And now he's back.
Yeah, against Chosen Braun too, which, I mean, he's not going to beat the Chosen Braun no matter what. So again, I do like that back on Lasix. I like the tactical speed, good post. I just think I think the 8 and the 9 are in trouble. They're good horses. Cali Bay and King Apollo are nice horses, but those posts with being closers, I just think they're going to be over bet for what their chances of winning are.
Race 9, 6 furlongs, open, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, maiden special weight. Duke, I say this all the time, and someone actually complained about it one time, which is hilarious to us. Is I kind of said, like, well, California at Gulfstream, I kind of defer with some of these races until I see the workout report, because it is such a strong workout report community in California. Also, Saratoga in the summer, Gulfstream. There's so many things that you can learn from the workouts that I often defer, just because I want to, and there's first time starters, you got to kind of figure that out. But let's just try to play blindly here. Did you have any thoughts about the 9th?
Yeah, I did watch some workouts again. I tend to like nowadays to watch them myself. You're talking about workout reports. I don't trust them all nowadays. It just seems like there's not enough opportunities for these guys that are doing all this work every morning, and I think they're keeping some of it to themselves, which is scary. But on the other hand, I've watched some workouts lately where I've totally disagreed with the report. So I'm going to start as much as I can because I don't have, I need more time in a day to watch these workouts because I'm doing too many trips. But um, I did watch workouts here, and Mish I thought was a small, tiny horse that maybe will take to the grass. I'm not sure that horse will be a dirt horse because she was small and she didn't work bad, but just looked like a turf horse that probably needed a race. The horse that to beat is obviously Andy. Can you hear me? Number 5 comes out of a live race, ran second in it, got left a little bit, was stuck in between a little bit, just ran a really bang up race, came back and really worked well, worked a minute and 1 out of the gate. And Mullins is really good with second time starters. He's probably going to be the favorite, but deservingly so. Another horse that I thought, the Baffert horse, Cowboy Mike, worked really well against, I'm not sure what kind of horse enclosure is. I think he's a maiden that runs 50s and 60 buyers and ran twice and didn't run that well, but he beat him very easily in that workout on May 29th and ran in that same race as Andy, Can You Hear Me? So he ran 4th in that race. So he'd be my second choice. And another horse that I thought had a chance was Big Baby. Mark Glatt usually goes second time out. All these horses are out of the same race, by the way. Big Baby, I thought had what would be what I call better than look performance, and worked pretty decently coming back. He was asked to keep up with a horse named Agency that runs around a 75 buyer. So if he could improve, I think it's 5, 6, 8. Just nothing tricky because they're all out of the same race.
Yeah, Duke, you kind of glazed over something that you taught me that's one of my favorite moves. And if people are listening, I think we should share it with them, which is, with those workouts, the thing that I look so much less at the grade than I used to. And what I look at now, maybe it's to your point, where you're thinking that maybe you're not getting the full story all the time from these workout reports. But one story that I think that can't be hidden that you taught me to do, which you mentioned it a couple times here, is seeing who they worked with. And if a horse who runs in a race where everyone's been running 60s, but the horse worked head in head with a horse who's been running 80s, that is a sign the horse could take a step forward or run well.
I agree totally. That's something I've been using for a long time, and now a lot of it's public now. So what was good about it before was, not a lot of people didn't have the information. But I mean, for now, it's good for the public to look at these things and take them, because horses that are maidens, they're going to improve in the morning. Some of them are, and some of them aren't, and you just got to try to figure out which ones are and which ones aren't. So, and they work them, like you said, they work them so hard in California, they're almost like running in between. So it's a very good tool for people to take into effect. And I think this is a perfect race to do it.
Race 10, we got a mile race on the turf. Duke, like you said, you pay attention. You're watching a lot of these races with Flavien gone, with Flavien, probably back east, I would assume, for the remainder of the summer. Who's kind of your go-to grass rider, a guy that when you see them up, you're like, okay, this horse could move up on the grass. And then and feel free if you want to, no pressure, but who's also a major grass downgrade for you?
I'm usually better at the downgrades than upgrades, but you're right. If Flavien was around, and it was nice to have those guys out here for a while. When we had Pratt, and we had Velasquez, and we had some good riders out here, Rosario a little bit. And now we don't really have them. So now I look towards maybe a guy like Frasu. I think he's a really decent a grass rider. I think Rispoli is very in and out. Like when he's riding good, he's riding really, really good, But when he's riding, he's like a streaky rider. He's like DeSormo. When DeSormo gets hot, like you can't beat him sometimes when he gets hot. It's like Rispoli. When he's in that zone, I think he's a really good guy to go to. And Hector Barrios, obviously, who's proven he's a really good grass rider. So I would say those are the ones that I'm looking for.
How about in here? How did you look at this race?
This race interesting. I think the 5 is the main speed. Talk less, work more. I think he's the main speed. Now I'm not really thrilled with this rider, Ricky Gonzalez, but when he does win, he wins on the lead. He's not a come from behind type of rider. He likes to send him, let him go free, and I think that's what he needs to do. They're putting blinkers on. Looks like the main speed. Could be very, very tough if they let him on a lonely lead. I think the classy horse of the race is Irish Heatwave, number 8. He's got Barrios. He's just going to sit back, make one run. He'll probably tuck in like he usually does. He'd be my second choice. And I think for a horse that might be a price, the 7, Big Bet Jafin Safa, really ran really well last time and won with a weird trip, got left and circled. And I don't know about grass, but it looks like he's got some braiding in there. There's had 2, I would say, so winners on the grass. So that'd be my third choice, 6, 8, 7, or 5, 8, 7.
Race 11, 5.5 dirt sprint. You know, back in the day, I did some kind of like a workbook where I went through all the winners of different races and tried to like identify what styles won what kind of races at Santa Anita. And it was before my first like NHC. I was just trying to understand it a little bit better. And I learned that the 2 most speed favoring trips at Santa Anita are 5.5 and 7. Weirdly enough, the most closer friendly was 6.5, but 5.5, 7, I've always just kind of erred on the side of speed. It looks like the speed is either going to be the 2 or the 8 here. Duke, what did you think?
Yeah, the 2 is a very nice filly and a very fast filly. So if you like that angle, I think the 2 will be very difficult to beat in here. The problem is the 7, Pequeño Tormenta, is not slow, so you got 2 really, I think, decent fillies in here that are, they're getting into this condition, this optional one other than condition that just fit it well. So it's going to be tough because if they hook up, I think a horse like Clickish can win. Clickish ran a really good race second time out in a maiden race. 2 horses came back and won out of the race, made a huge move, did get a good pace to run at, but Clickish has come back to work pretty well. Worked with a horse we talked about earlier. Worked with Jack Sixpack back on June 4th and held their own pretty well. She was right there with Jack Sixpack, and I was surprised to see that. So I think 2, 3, and 7 are the top 3, and I don't know which order, but like you said, at 5.5 at Santa Anita is usually a speed favoring distance, and because they start they're on the track. There's no shoot, and inside posts are good. So I think I would favor the 2 just a little bit.
Race 12, Duke, we're down the hill. Timeform US suggests that there's not a lot of pace in here. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but it says there's not a lot of pace in here. How are we going to get paid in this pick 5?
Yeah, there's definitely not a lot of pace in this race. I think it could be a race where the 3 running with the boys could steal it if she's, because I watched another workout on Running with Boys. It looked like they were trying to put speed into her. She took off really fast on June 3rd, and she's off since March. And I think the little 3-month break might have her really fresh and really sharp. So she'd be my top choice. Didn't get really much of a ride last time for Barris, which is unusual. But I think today he might put her on the lead with the lack of pace. Speed Lane is the 2 is very interesting. Vladimir Serin has been red hot, and DeSormo has been red hot. Cutting back in distance. Speed was no good on the turf on May 29th. I don't think anybody wired the field that day. I like the cutback. Third choice would be Lady J. I don't like the 1 post necessarily down the hill, but I've been chasing Lady J. Lady J's that trainer Barocchio does a fabulous job. He's kind of a new guy that's come about in California and picks up JJ Hernandez. I don't like the post, but I like the horse. So I like 3, 2, 1. And this is probably one of the better races. I think those are the 3 horses.
Dude, we can't wait to get you up here to Saratoga, and we're going to have some fun this summer, I think. You get Carson, you get the whole crew up here. Lucky's coming?
Lucky you'll be there for a couple weeks. She can drive now, so
Oh, wow. She
yeah,
doesn't know what she got herself into.
I know. She's gonna be driving Dad around.
Come get me.
Gonna be lots of fun.
All right, Duke. We'll see you. We'll see you soon. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, hopefully we got some good winners in there.
Brian, if you're looking for a contest on the eastern side of the world, a good place to stop in is Monmouth. What do you guys got going on this weekend and the upcoming weeks as well?
So we have something exciting for Saturday. Saturday here at Monmouth is what we're calling Haskell Preview Day. So we have 4 stakes races. Our next big contest normally would be on Haskell Day. So I tried to come up with a Haskell Preview Day contest, so to speak, and we did that through our friends at Horse Tourneys. So there is technically a $1, but you get your dollar back after the end of the contest. So we'll go ahead and call it a free contest on Horse Tourneys on Saturday. It's a pick and pray. Every race at Monmouth, we have 14 races, and the top 5 finishers get a seat into the $1,000 Haskell Challenge, which is our next big contest on Haskell Day on July 22nd. That's a live money contest giving out NHC, BCBC, and cash prizes. So that contesting is $1,000 on Haskell Day, July 22nd. But if you want a free $1 chance to qualify for that, you might as well take the free roll. You can go to horsetourneys.com, register anytime between now and Saturday, and play that contest. And if you are completely new to Horse Tourneys, if you or no one in your household has ever had an account, if you go to Horse Tourneys and register with code MTH15, you get a free $15 in site credit. So not only would the $1 contest on Saturday be a free roll, you get $15 to play with in the future. So I don't see any reason not to do that. And if you finish in the top 5, you get a $1,000 roll on Haskell Day.
And Brian, just to kind of clean up, it's a pick and pray, and it's all 14 races from Monmouth only, correct?
Correct. Full card from Monmouth. Pick and pray, so you have to put in all your bets in advance before all the races go. And then, like I said, one horse in every race. You get a mythical $2 win place. And at the end of the day, the top 5 get a seat in our $1,000 Haskell Challenge, which is a live money contest on Haskell Day.
There's nothing wrong with free. And in the midst of those 14 races, there's also 4 stakes races. You talk about it being Haskell Preview Day. Well, one of those races that is a preview to the Haskell is the Pegasus. I call it the Northern Pegasus. It's a 3-year-old race. So there's going to be some Todd Pletcher and a little bit of Brad Cox. Brian, did you get a chance to look at this race? Did you have any thoughts about the Pegasus?
I did. So yeah, it's race 10 on Saturday. It's the first leg of our all stakes pick 4. We all 4 of these stakes that we're going to talk about are back to back to back. So we added a fun wager. I'm a big believer in these all stakes pick 4s. So races 10 through 13 will be a pick 4. We have a 14 race card, so there'll be another pick 4 the last 4 races of the day. That's normal, but we added a pick 4 here for races 10 through 13, all the stakes. As you said, Todd and Brad, they're pretty much staples here in the Haskell Preps and the Haskell the last few years. Kings Barnes, the 8-horse here, would have to be the headliner, I would say, coming out of the Kentucky Derby. I want to take a small shot against him in this race, purely just for the story of, I guess he was targeting the Belmont Stakes. He missed that race due to a little bout of colic. Nothing serious, obviously, totally fine, but just had to miss the Belmont because he had to get some antibiotics. So just with that little, he missed a work, now might be the time to go against him. I have no qualms that he's the best horse in the race on his A day, but I want to take a small shot against him, and I had trouble finding that horse, but I'm going to take a small shot with the other Todd, Classic Catch. He put the blinkers on last time. He was beaten, 10 plus lengths against Arcangelo last time in the Peter Pan. That was his first time with blinkers. It did keep him closer to the early speed that day, which I like. He was kind of I don't want to say plotter, but he came from further back before he put the blinkers on. I like that the blinkers kept him a little bit closer. I like he's getting back to 2 turns on Saturday. The Peter Pan, obviously a 1-turn race. Maybe 2 turns will help him. Paco is going to have him in the perfect spot from the 1 hole. The only concern is I'm not sure he's that good, which obviously will hurt his chances. But I just want to find someone to take a small shot against King Barnes here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's when you see these races that come up after the Triple Crown races, after the Derby, the Belmont, the Preakness, these horses that run in those races, they just carry a little bit of extra weight. It's that name recognition. People remember them. People like them for their previous exploits. They're usually stakes winners. because they found a way into the Derby. They probably want to stake somewhere else. And they just seem to be overbet all the time. I wouldn't be shocked if Kings Barnes wins, especially with that notion that you mentioned about having to probably miss a little bit of time with the schedule change from the Belmont now to this situation here. I thought Salute the Stars for Brad Cox was interesting. It seems like they found out last time in that off the turf race this horse might actually like the dirt. I think that happens sometimes with big barns like Brad's and Todd's. We saw it with Up to the Mark. Who seems to be the best turf horse in the country. I think sometimes when you have a bunch of talented 3-year-olds or a bunch of talented horses, it's okay occasionally for one of them to kind of get lost in the shuffle, have to figure out a couple of things differently that they might want to do. I think Salute the Stars probably wants to be on the dirt, ran well last time on the dirt, and I think you should be able to at least get somewhat of a square price because, like you mentioned, Kings Barnes is going to take a lot of money. On to the next. The Eatontown. What did you think about the 11th, the second leg of that all stakes pick 4?
Yeah, so this is the turf version of, we talked about Todd and Brad and the Pegasus, the dirt race. Now we're on to a turf race, and it's Chad and Shug and Graham. So Christoph and Todd has one in here too. I actually like a horse in here. I like Surprisingly. I think she's actually good. She caught my eye 3 races back when she won the Endeavor. She had I don't even want to call it traffic, but she just had to wait for a little bit and closed really strongly to get up that day, beating Scottish Star, who's in here, and beating Market Segmentation, who subsequently beat her last time in the Beaugay and then won the New York on Belmont, or on the day before the Belmont Stakes. Surprisingly, in that race 3 back that she won, there was pace in that race. She's a closer, so it set her up that day. Her last 2 races, the Hillsborough and the Beaugay, did not feature fast paces, and she ran, I think, respectably in both of those, as you say all the time, closing into slow paces. There should be a faster pace today with the 7 Katie's a Lady in there. She's stepping up from allowance ranks. She's going to be on the lead. She's a runoff in some of her races. So I would expect there to be at least an honest pace in here. And I think that gives Surprisingly a better chance than she had in her last 2 races. And again, that win in the Endeavor 3 back where she beat Market Segmentation, I think that proves she can beat anybody. Paco has ridden her. He rode her in that Endeavor win. So I think Surprisingly is a sneaky decent horse here at probably somewhat of a relatively good price. Chad has 2 in here, including Gina Romantica, who's a Grade 1 winner. There's a horse for Christoph who was just beaten a length in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year. So I think Surprisingly might offer some value.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's very interesting. I love a closing into a slow pace. Consumer Spending is one of those horses that's going to take a lot of money. It's Chad in this spot. But, she kind of really always shows up and runs. And if you look at her running lines, who she's being beaten by: Grade 1 winner, Market Segmentation. Haughty, not quite a Grade 1 winner, I don't believe, but still graded stakes winner. McCulloch, graded stakes winner. Pizza Bianca, Grade 1 winner. And these are all the horses that this horse has kind of ran into. And you mentioned Market Segmentation, who went on to win that Grade 1 on Friday. I think Consumer Spending is the most likely winner. I just worry a little bit about the price. I got to use a horse like Surprisingly. And then you mentioned Malavath, who, ran in New York and the Plenty of Graces. And she's interesting because not only has her 2 of her previous starts in North America, did she run extremely well in big races. She was second to Pizza Bianca. She was beaten a length by Modern Games at Keeneland in the Breeders' Cup Mile. And then she went on to sell for 3.2 million euro and then gets switched to Christophe Clement. She shows up last time and doesn't even pick up her feet. And it's not that she was beaten that day. I want to be clear. She literally never picked up her feet. She just kind of jogged around there. I think maybe they learned something. Maybe they figured something out about her. Now she shows up here in a stake. I'd give her one more shot to see if Christophe can kind of right the ship. She obviously has a ton of talent, and she won't be nearly the short price she was last time when she got wired by Evie Jet. So I think this is actually a wide open race. And a lot of times on the East Coast, these turf races are they're not that wide open. It's Chad, Christoph, or bust. I think there is actually some other options in here.
Yeah, and one more thing about Malavath, she does in her European form have a lot of really good soft turf races. I'm hoping against it, but there is a chance of rain Friday and Saturday here. So, what is that? 3 races back, Malavath was second to Kinross in that Prix de Fournay over soft ground. So she has plenty of soft turf form if the turf has a little give in it.
On to race 12, the Salvatore Mile. I've always been a huge fan of Artorias. He's going to have to show it to me here. He didn't run particularly well last time. Pretty much, to me, of the races we've talked about so far, this third leg of that all stakes pick 4 is probably the most wide open.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds like I might have done the same as you. I'm on Artorias here. He was just under 9-1 in the Traverse last year into the teeth of Epicenter, Cyberknife, and Zandon. I definitely think there's talent here. He won the Curlin, in the prep for the Traverse last year. As you said, his last race of 2022 on, I think that was Breeders' Cup week or the week before the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland, wasn't all that strong, but he's been off since then. Chad is going to have him back in top form, coming off of the layoff. The outside draw, he's in post 9 of 10 is a little concerning. We don't run many races at a flat mile here. Most of our 2-turn races are a mile 70 yards, a mile and a 16th. The flat mile is kind of a short run into the first turn. If this horse can just avoid being, hung out there, super, super wide, I think there's enough pace in front of him with his back class. I think Florent Giroux will give him a nice ride and put him in a nice spot. The horse just who was his inside is interesting. Nimitz class. To be totally honest, this is a horse that I'm not super familiar with other than seeing his name now in the PPs. He's rolled off, looks like 5 in a row. There's some 100 buyers mixed in there. I mean, this horse is just on a roll, winning by open lengths at Parks and Laurel and some pen races for lower connections, but there's nothing wrong with this horse at all. He is absolutely on fire, winning stakes races with buyers from 93 to 103. But with him in the race, again, even though they're kind of lesser known trainer, owner, jockey combo than Chad and Juddmonte. I mean, this horse has to take money. Nimitz class is just on a roll. Artorias might not be the big favorite that he normally would be just based on, his connections with Nimitz class in there. It was those two for me, but I would not argue with anyone looking for some others.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, connections we're not all that familiar with. It doesn't look like they've had any horses run at Monmouth for the meet, but also they have had 31 wins this year in 2023. They're winning at 21%. And a lot of times when you see connections like this that have a higher win percentage with a good horse like this, usually it's the good horse that makes them have the high percentage. But like I said, only 4 of those 31 wins came from Nimitz class. I see what you're saying with this horse. I think this is a wide open race. I think some of the other races you can kind of lean and get a little bit skinnier in. I'm going to have to spread a little bit in the 12th. Brian, to like PTF always says, how are we getting paid in this all stakes Haskell preview day, pick 4, race 13, the Monmouth?
So I'm going to try to get paid with Shug here. He has the 2 Never Explain. This is a horse kind of similar to Surprisingly. I think this is one of these classic Shug horses that takes a little while to get going. He's now won 3 in a row, looking in his earlier PPs from 2021 and 2022, sprinkled in a win here, a win there. But this horse has now won 3 in a row. He won the dinner party on the Preakness undercard. I actually thought that race was fairly decent. Emmanuel came back to win on Belmonte. Hurricane Dream is pretty good. Atone was in that race, who won the Pegasus Turf over the winter. And Never Explain, sat a good trip and beat them all. He's now on a 3-race win streak. I think this is one of those Shug horses, as I said, that's just getting better with age. I think, he's going to run very well. I think he's going to win the Monmouth Stakes. Then you're going to see his name in some of the bigger races later on in the summer as he continues to get better and better. Tribhuvan is an interesting horse in here for Chad. He's a UN winner. I feel like probably he's a better horse going longer, where he can just, he's a speed horse, obviously. He can open up an early lead and hang on some of those longer races on firm turf. This is his comeback race, hasn't run since Traverse Day last year. A 1 1/8, probably maybe a little shorter than his best, but he's proven that he can do this before. Just on his comeback race in 2021. Yes, it was 2 years ago, but he won the Fort Marcy doing this at Belmont, going a 1 1/8 in his quote unquote prep for some longer races. So he certainly can win a race like this. I'm going to try to beat him with Never Explain, but if I'm not going to lose the pick 4 because Tribhuvan wins. So Never Explain will be a heavier use for me. Those are the only 2 that I would need here.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of lean on Tribhuvan a little bit, but here's the thing. Chad is really good with horses first off a layoff. But one thing Chad doesn't do a lot, because it's not his style, is to have a horse off a layoff who really lays it down and just runs all the way around there like Tribhuvan, right? it feels like because this horse is a UN winner, because he likes the turf course here at Monmouth, it feels like this is just kind of a setup for Chad, right? Get this horse around there, get a bottom to him, because then you're really going to let him roll in the UN just like he did previously. I'm not going to be shocked. I'm never shocked the horse wires in these turf races because, you know, they often end up being paceless. But I'm going to say if you hold me to it, I'm going to say this is a prep for Tribuven, and I'm going to try to beat him in here. And I think that you're right with Never Explain, but I'm also going to use Commandeer. You know, Jimmy Toner understands the grass, and it took him a couple starts once getting this horse to get to the grass. But once they did, man, this horse ran extremely well at Keeneland, broke slow, came running. There is a little bit of a negative because the pace was pretty quick in there. So he did get a little bit of a setup, but 2 horses have come back and won out of that race. Another 2 have come back and run second out of that race. I think it's a very productive race at Keeneland. I think Commandeer's found a new home on the grass. I'm going to give him a shot in here to kind of keep advancing on the grass a little bit.
Yeah, it's a, you know, he certainly ran a big buyer, 98, you know, if he breaks better and you know, Paco, nobody rides the turf course here like Paco Lopez. So he will certainly be in a good position. The tough part to try to handicap this, you know, Tribuven, you know, we've talked about him enough. You know, he certainly looks like the lone speed in here. I don't see anybody to run with him. So Never Explain to me was the horse with the best chance that would be closest to Tribuven. Sometimes that's a little tricky where you have to make that move a little earlier than you want. You have to kind of keep the pace horse honest while trying to get the best trip for yourself as well. So Never Explain has to maybe move a little early to keep Tribuven honest. A horse like Commandeer or even Speaking Scout might be the one that can close.
Brian, you guys always got something going on at the shore. So just as a reminder for all of those, we've got the All Stakes Pick 4 that starts in race 10 at 4:44 Eastern. It's hard to mess that up. 4:44 Eastern, race 10, All Stakes Pick 4. And then you got the free contest on horse tourneys. It's not really free. It's $1, but they give you the $1 back. That's actually free. I'm sure there's some kind of reason why you had to do it the $1 way. So we won't call it free. We'll call it $1 with a refund. And it's 1 through 14, top 5, if I'm not mistaken, qualify for the Haskell contest on Haskell Day, July 22nd. I didn't know I was going to be able to remember that.
100% right. Look at you hosting your ass off. But yeah, this is our you know, second biggest day of the year behind Haskell. We kind of targeted this day where there's not that much going on nationally, relatively speaking. So hopefully, you know, the card looks really, really solid. Hopefully the weather holds off for us, and whether it's the contest or the pick 4, or, you know, we got plenty of pick 5. I think we have 3 pick 5s over the course of the day. So hopefully plenty of wagering opportunities, and we'll all have a great day.
Brian, we appreciate you taking the time. Have fun this weekend. If we don't see you this weekend, I'm sure we'll see you Haskell weekend.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chicky.
Well, I'm joined now by a Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champion. I've run second twice, but I've never been fortunate enough to win. Drew, what's going on? You win any more contests lately?
No. Did good out at Express Bet. TQ and Acadia took care of me out there. Played on site. Finished 4th. I was in no man's land. That Cody's Wish up to the mark. I estimated $5 or $6 it was going to pay, and I'd probably win the contest at that point. But paid $450. Had 13 grand, sitting like $400 behind first place, and wasn't a spot for me to push all in at that point. So hit 4th, walked away with some seats and some cash. So can't complain about it.
There's nothing wrong with that. You're kind of the king of Woodbine. You should just move to Toronto at this point. But wanted to talk with you a little bit about this late pick 4. Get started in race 7, and there's a horse drawn to the outside who I thought really seemed to take a step forward, getting on the synthetic, moving up north. A horse that had been with Arnold Delacour and also with Graham Motion. Now shows up with Josie Carroll, drawn to the outside. The horse I was talking about was Batia. What did you think about race 7?
Yeah, I actually went to the stablemate of that horse. The number 9 Now Is a Breeze. 2 back, graduated from the maiden ranks, and last out came off a 5-month layoff and got a bit of a soft pace, and then faded. I'll excuse that effort a little bit in the hands of Josie Carroll, and the leading jockey stays aboard. That July 23rd race within the maiden ranks was pretty dang good. So I think could beat this field here. So it's a tough one. I'm going with that horse. I'll also be going with Bataya. I think that's, or however we're going to say it. And then the number 4, Love to Run, has really kind of not produced form of last year, and massive purchase price for Breeze Easy Club. So they had some high hopes. I think it was like 600,000+. So third off the layup for a 4-year-old with some upside. I'm hoping to get a bit of a price on that one. I think some people and money will be drawn to it, but maybe 3-1, 4-1, we'll see.
When it comes to synthetic racing, I usually, I've always felt comfortable with outside trip type of horses. When you think about kind of the old Keeneland synthetic, you think about Turfway, even what you see now at Gulfstream when they run on the synthetic. I just feel like those trips, although it plays similarly to turf, I don't think saving ground on the synthetic is as important as it is on the grass. So I had no problem with where the horse that I thought was the most likely winner towards the outside, Batyo, was drawn. Do you feel the same way, or do you try to save ground when you're at Woodbine?
It's so interesting. Sometimes the save ground trip is because of, pure luck. In these events where I think 4 horses don't even have a chance, staying outside and staying out of trouble is key to keep the momentum going. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that might be what you're hitting at, is if you're wide and outside, you can dictate terms however you need to and make that one long sustained run. Getting stopped on the synthetic is a pretty hard thing to overcome.
Race 8, we got another allowance, a little bit of a smaller field. I think a little bit more of a straightforward race as well. My eyes went to the 4 6 Cents, well-bred, a horse that, if I'm not mistaken, was a half to Xanthique, who we've seen win some nice races in New York for Tom Morley. And it's a horse that, if they end up in Ellen-J. Foxwood's hands, likely a well-bred horse, a horse that has some potential, wins first out, gets a nice figure, was bet that day, comes right back into an allowance instead of taking the typical route we see now with maiden winners where they win a maiden race. Next thing you know, they're in a stake. What did you think about the 8th, Drew?
Yeah, I tried to beat 6 Cents. I think that maybe the blue inner time form fractions can put you off a little bit, but then I go back to the holy smokes, this horse ran a massive number, even with kind of taking a breather in between. So if things are fully cranked, 6 Cents is going to be going. There's a couple others I would use as maybe a deep saver is Weehawken with Declan Carroll aboard, second start off a little bit of a layoff. Could be interesting. One last out, had tried 7 times previously. And then this, I don't even know, we don't even have numbers yet. Scottish Symphony has been racing at a pretty good company over at Gulfstream, gets back on the Woodbine surface where this one broke the maiden. So those 2 could be used, especially if you're seeing 6 Cents go down to like even money, 1-2. I don't know. What price would you be willing to take on that 6 Cents horse in this field?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what you're doing here, right? If you're, that question is tricky, because if you're betting to win, obviously there is a threshold in which you would go. If you're playing the late pick 4, the sequence we're talking about, I mean, I think you could get away with I think that if you single this horse, I think you're picking up some equity. But I think that, like you said, a lot of the equity lie in trying to beat that horse. Had that nice maiden win, has never been beat before, that whole deal. People are going to play the horse quite a bit. So, I mean, I think 2-1 seems about fair, is what you would like to get. I think it's probably unlikely that you're going to get that. I think you're going to probably creep more down into the 7-5 range.
Yeah, I agree. I fully agree.
Drew, on to the 9th. This one I thought was a little bit trickier, although it was a small field. I thought there was a lot of horses in here that had some races that looked okay, but still weren't trustworthy, right? Like the inside horse, Ready Lady, who ran down at Keeneland last time, who I thought, ran well enough, beating a length and a half, but like the pace wasn't very fast. This horse was kind of close to, I didn't necessarily see an excuse, was kind of outside in the clear, maybe getting down inside, saving some ground, maybe not pulling, maybe being able to kind of shut off will help Ready Lady a little bit, but I thought this was a wide open race.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good closers like to the outside with Miss Marie, but I'm going to go to the speed horse. I just don't see any speed in these one-turn, big, long, swooping 8.5 furlong turf events on the outer. I'm going to go with the speed horse of the number 7 Taurus. I think really could get loose in here, and the last 2 efforts were good enough to beat this bunch. Hasn't been seen in 6 months, but I think that's going to unlock some value for us. As I just see this group just a little bit cut below, and there's still some upside left with the 4-year-old for Cassie, who's only run 7 times and won twice. I'll also use a little bit of the number 2, perhaps tonight. The debut at Woodbine was impressive, earning the big time and running into the solo pace. And if anyone goes with our top choice, Presses should be right in the middle mix, I think. There's going to be, I think, 3 flights of horses. You're going to have Taurus and someone else going. You're going to have like Perhaps Tonight, and then the Miss Marie and the Ready Lady. All those deep closers are probably going to be in 3rd flight. So expect 1 or 2 horses to get stuck in a 2nd flight. And then lastly, the 3 Whimsical Dance. Lightly raced and debuted the 2023 campaign at Belmont against some good horses and couldn't really keep pace with them. So today, maybe a little better suited if there's no pace, and should be sitting in that 2nd flight here today.
Yeah, and look, I will say this. If you like the 2 Perhaps Tonight, which you made a great case for, I completely agree, was closing into slow fractions last time, you have to give a little bit of a look to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Amazing Queen, who was also far back on that race on May 27th, was also closing into those slow fraction, just didn't close as well as Perhaps Tonight. So another horse that will is listed right now on the morning line is 5 times the price of Perhaps Tonight, and I don't think is 5 times less likely to win than Perhaps Tonight. I would keep that one in the mix if you decide to spread a little bit. In race 9, race 10, a maiden optional, I believe, isn't it? Yes.
Yep.
Maiden optional. Drew, as PTF always says, how are we getting paid?
Spreading as much as we can. There's not much to like in here. So I'm going to go with the number 11 Impossible Birdie on top. As the first-time starter, who knows what we'll get. But I'll also use 3 others defensively equally as the number 2, Cherry Gardens, can pass horses and has run somewhat of a competitive number. And I'm kind of using competitive in quotation marks because it's really hard to see what these horses are going to do at this level. Number 1, Social Drinker, another one who's passed some rivals with a stretch out to the 6.5, might be able to stay a little more touch, or full 6, I should say, to stay in touch with the field. Don't love that this trainer has a 1 for 14 with maiden starters stat attached. So 2nd start, that is. So number 1, Social Drinker, and then maybe the number 5, Give Me the Boots. Last time might have been a bridge too far, going 6.5 and pressing the hot pace. And today gets a bit of a cutback. So might be closing into things in the thick of it late.
Yeah, I liked Give Me the Boots. You mentioned, I think the cutback kind of helps a little bit. Horse, if you look at pace figures, started to get tired after the 6th furlong. So maybe the cutback will help. 2nd time out as well, a little bit more fit. And then one that I thought, depending on what speed figures you look at, Sweeping Passion got a fast number last time. And look, the horse ran in a race for 15, wasn't really bet, but I'm okay with that when it comes to first time starters, because I think the situation that you realize is that, maybe they kind of snuck one past with this horse running for attack first time out. They didn't get claimed. The horse was actually better than they looked on paper for connections that don't win at a high percentage. And then the horse ran fast. The horse might not have beaten anyone, but did beat the clock. And so that's always something I think to keep in account. So, I would want to be alive at least a little bit to Sweeping Passion as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting. Spread as much as you can on this one.
Drew, what's next for you contest wise? Where we're going to see your name pop up next?
Yeah, I'm trying to look and see. Saratoga's the next big trip. Going to do Salevo for the first time. I think on Saturday night out there over on Whitney weekend. So hopefully Donnie and the boys over at NYRA Bets get some contest set up that has a nice price point to it. Kind of hoping for more than the $300 weekly contest, and that's probably it right there. And just keep things sharp and play in these little 300 NYRA Bets contests, or Express Bet has some good $500, $300 price points as well. So that's about it for me. How about you?
Oh man, who knows? I'm just maybe we'll see. I don't even know. I just like find out when the day of. I always, I don't pay attention as much as I used to. And then, but yeah, I mean, Express Bet always has a bunch of good ones, and I'm sure NYRA will put together some good stuff for the summer. So, and we'll make sure we push them on that. But in the meantime, you keep winning all your photos at Woodbine.
Yeah, we'll try. Thank you.
Good to see you, buddy.
You too.
I got to tell you, PTF needs a raise. That was a lot of work. Look, I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you can find some winners at Monmouth get involved in that free contest, get involved in the All Stakes Pick 4, get involved at Woodbine, Santa Anita, NYRA. There's always something going on. And thank you so much for spending the time to listen to us talk about some of these races. And we hope that you can find some success on your own on Saturday or whenever you're listening to this. And Pete always thanks our founding partners in 10 Strike Racing and the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. If you score, make sure you share a little bit with our friends at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. And you probably heard my voice enough these last couple of days. You're probably sick of it. Make sure you tune in to Fox. We'll be FS1, 2. I don't know what channel we're on, but I'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And what does Pete always? He always yells at the end, doesn't he? He does it pretty loud too. I'll do it too. May you win all your photos. Just me.